Through the ages, men have entertained themselves around glowing campfires with stories of monstrous, man-like creatures inhabiting remote regions of the world, variously referred to as Sasquatch, the Ab-nasal snowman, or more commonly as the Big Nose. This reclusive creature has never been successfully photographed or captured. Hello, I'm Nenard Lemoy, host of In Search Of. Do these creatures, these big noses, actually exist? Or are they merely emotional victims? Man's imagination. Tonight, for the first time, we will present evidence that clearly links these evolutionary oddballs to modern man. The key that completed the chain of evidence was provided by Mr. Ralph Menish, a retired auditor living in Goshen, Indiana.
Hello.
Mr. Menish was watching our last show on the Big Nose when he suddenly realized he could understand the creature's grunting. What everyone else thought were the sounds of barking dogs and squealing pigs were, according to Mr. Menish, a rudimentary accounting jargon. He believed he could actually understand that gibberish. Flushed with excitement, he re-examined odd bits of refuse commonly found along known big-nosed trails. Later, after his discovery that these relics were actually accounting paraphernalia, these paths became known as Big Nose Accounting Trails. If fate had not intervened, this fascinating story might have ended there. But Mr. Menish was not an ordinary man. He was an auditor, a bloodhound without equal. Despite the ridicule and persecution he suffered for the rest of his short but tragic life, he insisted that he had uncovered evidence that living offspring of accounting big noses may be stalking the earth even today. Mr. Menish named this species Accounting Aspect Man. Join us now as we go in search of Accounting Aspect Man. We pick up the trail where Mr. Menish left off. By careful examination of his research papers, our small but dedicated staff discovers an almost unbelievable story of an odd child born in the remote back countries of the central United States in a village we call Milwaukee. For years, the natives had reported sightings of a strange two-legged beast running through the forest preserves while bellowing numbers and odd-sounding phrases. Our crew finally captured this elusive beast, and through careful and patient interrogation, we began to slowly unravel its fascinating story. According to the written history of the Big Nose tribe, these creatures were once referred to as Sasquatch, meaning large schnoz. Over the course of time, this family name slowly changed to Susmahach, then Susmaher, and finally Seesmeyer. One tribal myth tells the story of the Gross Schnaza. According to this legend, a big nose throwback is produced every 200 years. The legend became reality on a cold January 18th, 1962, the day Michael Seesmeyer was born. He was the first of the controversial jar babies. Even at birth, his ancestry was evident. The telltale feature would remain throughout his life. At the age of 2, and at a height of 24 inches, Mike forced his unsuspecting parents to install an abacus in his playpen. Shortly thereafter, he produced his first 2 words, 1, 2. 2 years old, 2 foot tall, 2 words. Coincidence? Predetermination? During the 1st grade, Mike's family moved to their 2nd home in Palatine, Illinois. Mike skipped 1st grade and entered 2nd grade, where he lost 2 teeth. His oldest brother Al married and left home. Mike now looked up to 2nd oldest brother Steve. 2nd home, 2nd grade, 2 teeth, 2nd oldest brother. Coincidence? Predetermination? 2 years later, Steve went to college, and Mike only had 2 brothers remaining, Brian and Rob. Rob, 2 years older than Mike. 2 years later, 2 brothers left, 2 years older. Coincidence? Predetermination? As a high school student, Mike developed a passion for running 2 miles a day. He joined the cross-country team where his big nose was successfully used to cut through the wind. He attracted the attentions of 2 girls. The first was only necessary so that there could be a second. Her name was Ellery. 2 miles, 2 girls. Coincidence? Predetermination? Unbelievable? I think so. Is Mike Ciesmeyer a modern-day big nose? Is he a man with the accounting aspect? Will Ellery succeed in capturing this elusive beast? Stay tuned as we listen to Mike describe his life with Ellery in his own words. As a young he-big nose, without much working capital, I met a young she-big nose named Ellery. I was immediately attracted to her valuable assets. A glance at her balance sheet was all it took for me to imagine my growing equity. In turn, she wanted control of my preferred stock. At this point, neither one of us had yet developed the accounting aspect. We were only raw materials. We decided to spend the next 4 years achieving the highest state of personal conditioning, finished goods. I became a CPA after mastering the confusing principles of accounting, and Ellery entered the dangerous but action-packed world of corporate banking. As is often the case with accounting big noses, I frequently overstated my reserves and misrepresented the value of my common stock. However, in her rapidly growing urge for an acquisition, Ellery overlooked my liabilities. I admit that at first I ignored her friendly takeover gestures, but one day she changed all that by showing me what consolidating our assets could be like. We agreed on a merger to take place November 24th, 1984. She insisted on using the generally accepted accounting principles for the ceremony. After the merger, I applied some direct labor to her doubtful accounts and was pleasantly surprised to discover she was into stocks and bonds and even a little fiscal balancing. As she opened her books for the first time and pointed out her receivables, I experienced rapid inflationary pressures. She became weak-kneed at the sight of my overextended account and nearly fainted at the thought of my FIFO inventory movement. She begged me to show her the matching principle. Unable to control my cash flow any longer, I made a timely deposit destined to become part of her retained earnings. As I sensed depreciation setting in, Ellery noticed a significant book-to-physical shrink in my inventory. And by the way, who does your taxes? You've seen the story, you've heard the facts. You decide. Is Mike Seethmeyer a normal human or a modern member of an ancient, primitive, big-nosed race now known as Accounting Aspect Man? This has been Leonard Lemoy, In Search Of.